I offer a draw.
And here we are with the Real Chess League. On the left-hand side, we have AngelikaChessborn, top woman player from Ukraine. An attacking player, loves sharp and open positions, and her favorite player is Ivanchuk. On the right-hand side, we have OrcaChess, killer whale from Germany here, and he loves attacking chess as well. Favorite player is Anand.
Have a nice game.
Nice game, Toyota.
And well wishes from both the players here. OrcaChess opens with D4, 15 minutes from both sides here, and D5 on the board from AngelikaChessborn. We have C3, not a C4. Wow, definitely an interesting move here. Some type of London system maybe set up if we see bishop to F4. Knight of 6, you should just develop your pieces. And we have E3, strange move here from OrcaChess. Bishop F5. The reason why E3 will be strange is because we have to figure out what to do with our pieces, and we voluntarily close our bishop inside of the pawn chain, which is a mistake. Well, bishop sits on D3, and she trades it. There it is. Absolutely, I would do the same. Actually, if I was OrcaChess, I would probably put the bishop on E2 instead of D3 here, just because that is our strongest bishop. Our strongest bishop is usually the king's bishop, and it helps us in kingside attacks, or sometimes just having an extra bishop on the board. With that bishop traded, it's going to be hard to attack black on the light squares. And our dark square bishop is very, very bad. Let's see what AngelikaChessborn has in store. She responds with C6, very solid move here. Not only are the pawns connected, but also she followed a principle here of when you trade a bishop, you usually, and you're left with one bishop, you usually want to keep the pawns on the same color of the bishop that you traded, so that your other bishop has squares and free to roam around the board. Knight F3, we should just develop our pieces. OrcaChess is doing a great job of that. Honestly, simple development of the knights and the king. The bishop on C1 is what we're going to have to figure out how we want to develop that. Do we want to play B3 and maybe bishop A3 in a French fashion, actually trading the very strong bishop that AngelikaChessborn has? So we could see B3, bishop A3, especially if E6 is played in this position, or we could play castles, knight b to d2, maybe a rook e1 thrown in there, and play e4 and open up the game that way. That's going to take a while, but of course both parties here are equal. White and black have no advantages usually on both sides right here. As you see, the pawn structure is 100% symmetrical. Very, very even game. Knight b to d2 is on the board as he just develops. So b3, bishop a3 is not going to happen, of course, because bishop a3 would be a blunder. That's not a move. So, and she responds bishop e7 instead of bishop to d6. You usually would like to put your pieces on the best squares, and that d6 diagonal is usually the best one. The b8 to h2 just looks a little bit better. Castles from both sides with confidence. And as she makes that move, OrcaChess looks up, he looks at the clock, and he goes into the think tank. Let's see what he comes out with. What you could be thinking about here is, how do I get this bishop out? Rook e1, e4, b3. Let's see.
Let's free the bishop.
Let's free the bishop, he says, and plays e4. Over the board, too. Let's free the bishop, and stares at you. Plays e4 and hits the clock. A lot of confidence there from OrcaChess. Playing e4, actually telling her what he's doing. Telling your opponent, I'm going to free my bishop. Let's see how she responds. Now, she can capture here. It's a super equal game, and there is symmetry broken now after e4. Knight takes e4, she decides to take, and after knight takes e4, you could see queen takes e4 to follow. Let's see how AngelikaChessborn responds. As now, OrcaChess bishop on c1 is now a pretty good bishop. We have some squares at least. She's scanning the board. OrcaChess looks up, a sigh there saying, I'm confident, I feel better. This is what you can just see it there, the psychological thing there. You can just understand it. He feels pretty good about his position now as he's able to get his bishop out. But AngelikaChessborn has nothing to worry about here in this position. After knight b to d7, developing my pieces. No weaknesses, no weak pawns, literally for both sides here. So this is actually a super equal game. Engines is looking at probably zeros here. If we had to choose one weakness in the position, just one, it would probably be the e5 square, which we could use, but black can break with c5, which could definitely stop the power over the e5 square, as the d4 pawn, the knight on f3, and the bishop f4 all hit e5, but we can definitely play c5 at the right moment, which is one of the plans here in these type of structures. You have to understand that the pawn structures are the skeleton of the game, and they can tell you exactly how the rest of the game should go just by understanding the pawn structure. Black should immediately sort of get c5 in, if maybe even right now, in some cases, or knight takes e4 followed by c5. But let's see how AngelikaChessborn responds. And there it is. Knight takes e4 is on the board. Queen takes e4 immediately, and knight f6. These guys are playing like blitz almost. Knight f6, and the queen is attacked. Angelika, she has to figure out what to do after knight f6. Now, nice move from Angelika here. Knight f6 is hitting the queen. Queen has to figure out where to go. Maybe we can go queen e2, e3, c2. But again, guys, not many weaknesses. Only the e5 square. Maybe you can put a knight on e5. And here's a plan. Always have plans. Knight e5, imagine this. In your head, let's do some visualization here. Knight e5, h3, bishop h2, g4, f4, rook f3. You could try to attack on that king side, but that's also taking very, very big risk. And there's no weaknesses for either color here. So besides the e5 square, honestly, and that's going to be neutralized very soon, especially if we can get c5 in at the right moment. Let's see what she's thinking about. Many plans here. Maybe getting the queen off of the back rank. Queen to d5, centralizing the queen, trying to stop the rook from a1 to even centralizing, because the a2 pawn would hang, and at the same time getting a rook to d8. She chooses queen b6. AngelikaChessborn goes for queen b6, eyeing the b2 pawn, saying, okay, yeah, you're going to have to keep your queen there for a little bit. Let's see how OrcaChess responds to that one. Also, at the same time, getting the queen off the back rank, connecting the rooks. This is a great position, but it's still fairly equal. Lots of play. Rook f to e1, centralizing the rook and x-raying the bishop. The queen was already x-raying the bishop, but the queen is a little overworked there as we have to x-ray the bishop. Maybe just sit around e2, defending b2. But rook e1, nevertheless, is always a useful move to make. And she goes into the think tank here, puts the classical, put my hands over my head as I think here, because I'm going to figure this plan out. I need a plan right now. Let's see what she comes up with. Look at the concentration here. Calculation. She's calculating and thinking. What do I do? And with aggression and confidence, thrusts the a5 pawn and says, yeah, it's on, OrcaChess. I'm going to mess up your queen side and try to provoke some weaknesses and see if we can get you on that side of the board. OrcaChess looks up. As you see, his focus is on that side of the board, and he should be focused and slightly concerned with the ideal of a4 and maybe even a3, just to make some holes in the position, followed by a of b3, queen a5, maybe knight to d5, and attack that side of the board. Very, very strong plan here from Angelika Chessborn. Orca Chess has to move. Let's see what he comes up with. He's thinking, and he makes the move h3 and says, I don't care. I don't care. Looks up at her after he plays h3, hits the clock, looks up slightly, and looks back down at the board. Now, this could be the same plan. Bishop h2, knight e5, g4, f4, and have some fun on that side of the board. Let's see what happens, actually. She has a lot of moves here. a4 could be the move. Just play a4 anyway. Knight h5 maybe a little bit too much. Knight d5 is a good move as well. She just says a4. Yeah, whatever. a4. Your move, Orca Chess. What are we going to do now? How are you going to respond to my a4? Rook A to B1, saying I'm going to free up my queen just a little bit here, maybe even threaten things like B3. If you play A3, I could also just take the pawn. Nice move, X-raying the queen here. He looks at the clock, he glances up at her, he looks down at the board. So we can tell here that he's maybe slightly uncomfortable, but still confident enough to know that Rook A to B1 is a good move, and we need to figure out what to do here. Now it is Angelika Chessborn's move. Let's see some possibilities in the position. Maybe moving a rook and centralizing. Maybe playing a Luft move, grabbing some space for my king like h6. She plays c5, and that's the move that we were talking about earlier. And in these type of structures, guys, you have to have some type of break. c5 actually breaks up that d4 pawn because there was only one pawn in the center of the board, if you think about that. And whose pawn was that? Well, Orca Chess's pawn sitting on the d4 square, one of the 4 squares of the center, and c5 attacks it, saying, hey, we're going to attack this pawn just to mess up your center, and chances could be a little bit better for black if we have the active piece play. White has some active piece play as well. Everything's developed. Nothing to really worry about here. Probably 100% still an equal game, but it does take a little bit of accuracy so you don't end up in a slightly worse position. Let's see what Orca Chess chooses. He's sitting in a think tank, and this is a place where you all should be. Use your time here. And of course, if you look at the clock here, he's only up about a minute on time here. About a minute, so time is getting a little bit more even. There's lots of plans, though. C5 is a very, very good move. The question is, do we capture or do we not? Moves that cross your mind. D takes c5, bishop e3, knight e5, bishop to e3. Great clock management, though, from Orca Chess here, as he's up about 30 seconds on time. And that's what happens, guys. When you're up time, you can choose when you want to use this time. And this is a great time to use it. Time's getting a little bit more even. And he calculated and said, I'm going b3, open up the game. Oh, yeah, let's go for it. If a takes b3, we may see rook takes b3 because it's kind of strange. The b7 pawn would be hanging, but I can guarantee that this game is going to get a little wild here. Orca Chess looks over to the side here and just takes a deep breath, sits back, and leans and says, I got this. I got this. Your move. That's what he's saying with his eyes. As you can see, he's staring at his opponent here. Angelika Chessborn is calculating lines, as you can see, because one step here could go very, very wrong. Maybe trading could be right. Maybe trading could be wrong. If you do take a takes b3, there's two options for white. Rook takes b3 and try to pile on the b pawn, open the file with a smile there. Or if a takes b3 and try to kick the center pawns a little bit stronger there, but it does keep the a file to to AngelikaChessborn here to the black pieces. So if a takes b3, I might actually take with rook takes b3 just to keep that eye on that b pawn, but that does make super weaknesses for the b and a pawns. Now if we go rook takes b7, we get the 7th rank before and e7 where the bishop sits, loose pieces, lose games, loose meaning undefended. It will be a problem there for that bishop on e7. So she trades on c5 and says, let's go for it. Pretty strong idea here. I think if pawn takes, if c takes d4, which would be an error, it just immediately creates a weakness. And we talked about having kind of like no weaknesses for this game, but now being weaknesses on the b7 square and the d4 pawn. If c takes d4, it's going to leave that isolated, which gives us a huge plan and it's sort of a slight edge for black here if we see c takes d4. Let's see what he does. We also have b takes a4. Just open the file and let's get crazy here. Let's see what he chooses. B takes a4 for the score. He says, we're going for it. And she looks up at him, okay, and says, yeah, all right, yeah, we're going for this, huh? We're going for this, says AngelikaChessborn. Calculates, she thinks a little bit, and let's see what she chooses. This is tactical. Tactics win games. So make sure you're doing your tactics for breakfast, lunch, and dinner here, because there's a lot that can go on. There's a queen hanging. There's a pawn hanging. There's doubled pawns. There's open files. This is nuts. And we thought that this was super equal. And just when you thought it was safe to come outside, a takes b4 or b takes a4, and we're waiting for black to figure out what to do with the queen on b6. And a stretch there from OrcaChess. Body language says a lot here. Body language definitely says a lot. And we can see that he's a little looser. He feels better. He's breathing. He's stretching. He's looking up constantly at your opponent. And usually when you look up constantly, you just feel like, hey, I feel pretty good about the position here. And as we see, AngelikaChessborn is focused, 100% focused, not taking her eye off of the game, off of the prize here, staying very, very into her zone. She likes these sharp type of positions. Open positions is where she thrives anyway. Favorite player being Ivanchuk. She likes these great positions, sharp, all kind of things hanging. They look up at each other. Wow. And it happens a lot over the board chess here where things get tense over the board. And they're like, yeah, you see it? Do you see what I'm doing? Do you see what I'm doing? Did I make a mistake? I don't know. What does your body language say? There's a lot going on, a lot of emotions, a lot of psychology going on here in this game. And 2-minute lead here for OrcaChess on the clock, which could be an advantage here as after we get under 5 minutes. It's going to feel more like a very fast blitz game as it is once we reach 5 minutes here. Someone will be already in blitz time trouble. Let's see what happens. I like the move Queen a5 though. Queen a5 was very nice from AngelikaChessborn here, attacking both of the pawns. b7 is hanging. Rook takes b7, attacking the e7 bishop, like we said before. If that rook gets down there to b7, e7, that bishop is going to have some trouble there. That could be a move, but at the end of the day, oh wait, here it is. Here it is. He's going for it, and he does c takes d4 instead. Rook takes b7 would hit the bishop with tempo. They may be following with c takes d4, but of course you're just saying, I'm going to take all of your pawns. I'm going to take a4. I'm going to take d4. I'm going to take everything for if you would allow me to. And queen takes a4, rook takes b7, and we're on the 7th rank. 7th heaven is what they say here in chess. Rook takes b7, and hitting the e7 bishop there will be the next move if we see queen takes a4, because black needs to probably start taking some pawns back to neutral and get some of this material back. But we do see queen takes a2, rook takes b7, bishop has to move, and the a2 pawn is extremely weak here. Very well could still be very equal here. Knight d5 and in between. Zhisenjug is what they call this here. Knight to d5, very strong move, attacking and defending at the same time. Weak pieces, or loose pieces, sorry. Loose pieces lose games. And loose, again, means undefended. What a strong move here. Yes, I'm not taking my pawn back just yet. On a4, I'm going to play knight d5, an in-between move to attack your bishop, defend my bishop on e7, just in case rook takes b7 happens. And now I can still take on a4. I've centralized my knight. What a strong move from AngelikaChessborn. Bishop to d2. We got to keep the attack going, says OrcaChess. And it's always good to make threats. Ouch. And she takes that with power and stares at him and says, your move, big fella. What you going to do now? Queen takes a4. a2 is hanging. You could play rook takes b7 here, but it doesn't hit the bishop anymore, which allows queen takes a2. And black is right back in the game. In fact, it's still, I think, a dynamically equal game. And it's dynamic because it feels like there's a lot going on. Both 7th ranks have both been evaded by each other. So rook takes b7 and queen takes a2 here. We both have the 7th rank of each other. I have the 7th, she has the 2nd rank, and pawns are on the same side, but there's a weakness on d4, meaning the only weak pawn would be the pawn on d4, which actually gives a slight advantage to black due to the active pieces and a weak pawn, a target on d4. Wow, what a turn of events here. Very sharp position, and it looks like it could slightly go in black's favor. Now, of course, just because it's an isolated pawn and there's pieces on the board does not mean that black's just going to win this. And OrcaChess is strong, and he's not going to just go down. And he's going to make this thing pretty difficult here as he's still thinking about the move. Knight to d5, bishop d2, queen takes a4. Let's see what happens. He goes for it. He takes a quick glance at the clock and plays rook takes b7. Now you have to notice that OrcaChess is doing very well with time. He didn't want to get too low on time there. He was up time. Now he's down like maybe 20 seconds or so. But we didn't want to get down a minute, 2 minutes on time, especially now. This is so much blitz territory. They have about 5 minutes and 30, 40 seconds apiece here, and they're about to go into a blitz game. Queen takes a2. There's no increment here. So after queen takes a2, this time's just going to run. Queen takes a2 is on the board there. Rook takes b7, queen takes a2. And now white has to figure this thing out. What's going to be the move? Queen b5. Interesting move here. Queen to b5. Centralizing the queen on the b file. The center of the b file, the light squares, queen b5. He's putting the queen on b5 here. And I don't know what we're trying to do with this move. And now, of course, maybe it could be keeping the rook defended, maybe tripling on the file. Queen d7 is not a move either. We have to see what his plan is after queen to b5. Well, this bishop f6 move is getting the bishop out of range. It's just getting out of the way. Yes, I'm defended, but I just don't want any trouble. So we're going to put the bishop on f6 as AngelikaChessborn here. Attack the weak pawn. Remember, we talked about those weaknesses before. And now, as push comes to shove and as the dust settles, we see that white has a weak pawn on d4, which could be a downfall here. In fact, it feels like white's pieces are slightly miscoordinated. We have to figure out what to do. We do have the 7th rank, so that's something to always be happy about. We have the 7th rank, so that's pretty fun. But we need to figure out a plan. There's nothing to attack. There's no sacrifices immediate. G4 might be very, very risky in this position. And you need a plan and a follow-up, and a good plan at that. Let's see what he chooses here. Very strong player. Let's see what he figures out. He's grabbing. He's reaching for the rook. He's hovering over it. And he says, just triple. Why not? Just put them all on the file with a smile. If you ever think about coming to the B file, it's not going to happen. So the B file is 100% whites here, but what we do here on the file is unknown. And actually it does feel very good just to put the rook on the B file here, try to figure things out. You know, this is not the easiest position to play for white. In fact, black feels like we could have some type of slight advantage, but again, the 7th rank, dynamically equal, I would say here, with a slight edge for black, but very, very slight edge, especially that weak pawn. If we could trade things, if you're playing black here, you do want to trade, follow the isolated pawn principles and ideas there. You need to trade. Whoa, and bishop takes d4 for the score. Rook f to b1, she hit this man with a move. That is tactics, and tactics win games. Sharp positions, she always likes to thrive. Bishop takes d4 for the score. Well, what's the idea here, guys? If knight takes d4, we have queen takes d2. Overloaded knight there. You can't defend both of them. Or you can, but you're going to have to choose now. Knight takes d4 and let me take the bishop, or you make another move. Let's see what she chooses here. Very strong move, and now she goes up a pawn, taking that weak pawn that was in the center there. You can't have those weak pawns just sitting around, and she takes on d4, sips the water. That shows a eluding confidence there. She's up a minute on time here. This could be a win here. this could be a win for AngelikaChessborn, especially shock factor. Time is pressure's there. But as you see, OrcaChess is doing a great job of keeping his composure, which is very important. The attitude, the control over your emotions here. As you see, he lost the pawn, but he doesn't look shocked. He doesn't look like, oh my goodness, I lost a pawn. He's not sighing. He's not breathing. He's not shaking his head. He's actually staying 100% focused, even though he's down a pawn. Bishop takes d4. Now he's getting down on time. He takes a look at the clock here. Quick glance as he's calculating like a machine. Straight focused. No emotions. And he reaches. A little indecision, maybe double checking, triple checking. The question is, where do you move? Rook to d1, maybe, and just go down the pawn. Or you could just probably take the bishop and maybe remove the knight and come back to f3 and just say, hey, yes, you're up a pawn, but how are you going to convert this? This is not the easiest. They're all on the same side. All the pawns being on the same side. Whoa, bishop e1, he offered a draw? And she says, no, big fella, and looks back down at the board. She says, not today. Draw what? Bishop to e1, defending the f2 pawn. Or bishop e1, defending the f2 pawn. Let's see what she responds to. Now, knight c3 could be a move here, followed by queen takes f2. This is a very nice combination here, as we're up one pawn, and you have to look for attacking moves here, guys. The more that you attack, the better, and the harder it is for your opponent to defend. Let's see what happens. She's doing a great job here. Knight c3 could be a great find, and that could really help her try to win this game. OrcaChess has offered a draw. Smart move. Why not? They might say yes. We'll definitely offer a draw. I'm down a pawn here. This position is collapsing. Yeah, we're going to offer a draw and see if we can do that. She declined, and she's trying to find the move. Knight c3, she finds it. Hits the clock. Confidence there. Bishop takes immediate. Queen takes f2 right back at you. And that's a second pawn. And she looks at him like, yeah, did you see that? Yeah, it's your move, bro. Queen takes f2, king h1 out of the way. She goes into the think tank with 3 minutes on the clock here. Still up on time with a minute for OrcaChess. Let's see what happens. What is the move here? Well, looks like you just have to take on c3, but she's calculating to see if there's a better move. They always say, when you find a good move, you look for a better one. So she might be calculating rook to a2 as a possibility, attacking the g2 pawn for checkmate. But I think white could probably just block that with rook to b2 or even bishop b2 and saving the piece. So she does bishop takes c3 and says, all right, I'm just going to take the piece back. I'm up 2 pawns here. Let's try to convert this. Queen to a4, other side of the board. You have to do whatever you can. In fact, knight g5 is a legit threat here. OrcaChess still saying, yeah, I'm down 2 pawns, but guess what? Time's getting low, and I am going to still attack you no matter what. Now, the f8 rook is actually not in the game because it's the only piece defending f7. So if you move it, checkmate, and we grade, start a new game. So you can't move the rook off f8. So in fact, black's only playing with 3 pieces. The rook on a8, the bishop on c3, and the queen on f2. And the queen h5 is very strong. And if you play g6, you get weaknesses around the king, stuff you got to worry about. It's not the easiest way, and in time pressure here. Now, if this was a classical game, there may be an easier way or easier route. You have so much time to think about this, but with 2 minutes on the clock, this is going to be tough. Queen h5 is a very strong move. Knight g5 being a legit and immediate threat. Now, of course, knight g5 actually doesn't hit f7. The queen's doing a great job on f2, defending backwards the f7 pawn, so you actually couldn't take it. He does go for queen h6. We could have a bishop back to g7, and there it is. Hey, we're going to defend. You got to get up out of there. You got to get out of my house, please. And queen f4, queen goes back to civilization, gets out of the way, keeping the pressure on the f7 pawn. Very nice way to keep pressure here, as time is now within 25 seconds of each other. About 25 seconds, minute and 25 for both of them. This could get very crazy, especially when they get under 1 minute. e5 here, and immediate move, queen to c4. I mean, look how he just kept the pressure. This is one thing you can learn here. Keep the pressure on your opponent, even when you're down. Queen f7. In fact, e5 could be a mistake. A5 could have been a decisive mistake. And we say decisive, not in the way of losing, but at losing the advantage. E5 was not that good because now the bishop has to defend it. And you don't have enough pieces. You have to defend F7. Yeah, we're up 2 pawns, but you're not able to move them. You can't move your pieces, says OrcaChess. Very nice. Rook F1 would be very nice from OrcaChess. And in fact, weirdly enough, if Rook F1 and we get Knight G5 in, White would actually be on the attacking chances here, on the attacking side. So Rook A2, she just says, forget it. Go for mate. But Rook to G1 defends the mate. Queen F1 would be a fatal error here, as we do not want to trade queens, as it just relieves the pressure and the pawns start rolling, walking the dogs in the park. Pretty simple. Trade the rooks if we can, and going to a winning endgame. Now, Rook to G1 is a move, and that's what he chooses, Rook to G1. They're both at about a minute here, almost under a minute. This is going to get crazy. Have you ever seen, I'm sure you guys have seen bullet chess online, but bullet chess over the board is a different story. Queen to C2 is on the board. She says, trade them. Get them off the board, please. He says, not today. Queen to D5 and E4. Wow, she got that pawn. Now the bishop is able to get out. The dark square bishop is able to move. And Knight G5 attacking F7. Look at him going for that F7 pawn. E5 was a mistake, or E5 from pushing the pawn from E6 going to E5, E4 has now allowed White to have some counterplay here. Knight takes E4. Thanks for the pawn back. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your generosity, says OrcaChess, as we get 1 pawn back just like that. And we are in like under a minute here, 40 seconds for both sides. We go Knight D6 and we're in the mix. Hitting F7. Whoa. Hitting it again. Queen back to F2. This could be a draw. Knight E4. Repeating. Queen to C2. This looks like a draw here. OrcaChess astoundingly came back and found a way to draw this game. Queen F2. They might be repeating moves. They look at each other. That's usually like, you want to draw? And they're like, yeah, there it is. And a draw agreed. What a game.
I think it's a bit it's a bit dangerous with this weak point here on F7.
I shouldn't have pushed D5, I think, yeah. Just felt, it was just, I don't know, such a move to make. So like, queen was on F4, there was a pin, and yeah.
I think it's way more safe for you if you play with H6.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Instead of G6, maybe some weaknesses, and this pawn is getting even weaker. But you were 2 pawns up, as a very very healthy structure with the knight. It is way better as a strong position.
Yeah.
How did you make it? How did you find all these tactics?
Very exactly. I mean, when I played, actually when you played B3 and then I took, at first I saw that actually you have to take on D4. And because, somehow it felt like if you take on A4, then it feels not so secure because your pawns are getting all are apart. All
a bit weak on
the exactly.
A5. I thought, as if I take here in between move, then my rooks are getting very active and it's very difficult. But all in all, I think in the end I have this a bit weaker pawn on D4, and that was, maybe it's a tiny advantage as you can keep.
Yes.
Maybe.
That's why I played also Queen A5, to make you to take with a pawn. But actually, maybe you could take with a knight too. But then I take C3. It's not clear there. I mean, that's why I made you, so to say, to take with a C pawn to make this isolated pawn, and then it's on bishop's color square, so on dark square, and I can easily attack it with my bishop. And then you just missed it probably, bishop D4, you missed, but I can take. Yeah,
then I missed it, totally missed it, and I thought, okay, it's not hanging, it's protected, but if I take, then my bishop is hanging, and.
Yeah.
And
you could have played, I think, knight e5 or something like that.
As a response for the...
knight e5 not possible, sorry, knight e5.
Knight e5 you mean, or...?
No, knight e5, sorry, not possible because your bishop is hanging. But you could have, maybe bishop... maybe bishop e3 even, like passive move, but bishop e3 and then knight e5, maybe. So the main the idea was that your bishop is kind of not the best one, and Mike can still attack your pawn. So, But yeah, at the end I had luck with that you did not take also, and you played as bishop e1, offering a draw. And
yes, offering a draw, and oh my god! And then the next pawn is coming, and oh wow, wow, 2 pawns down. But then I thought, okay, now you have to go all in with these active rooks on this f7 square, and I think perfect play. As you are overtaking the position, you can stabilize first, and then you, and then you can make use of your pawns.
Exactly.
But with that time, and it's pretty dangerous. So I think you in this position you have to go for the repetition.
Yeah, I also think so. Yeah, I mean, the problem is your rook is pinned, my rook is pinned. Your pieces are kind of active. My bishop can be active, but maybe I could have played a bishop d4. Now I see it. Now I see the move. That maybe bishop d4. But okay, if you just go, we just repeat, and I have no time for that. So in case you don't repeat, then I have this bishop d4. So that's like my idea. And if I don't repeat, I don't see another move. Okay, knight e4 comes back, and where can I go?
I think at this position it's very, very difficult. I think probably h6 is more stable. More stable approach. Bishop bishop f6, and then I have no entry squares for my knight, and the knight is some kind of dominated.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe here I have knight e4, rook e2, knight d6 back, queen e6, and I'm protecting still my rook, and I'm protecting f7. Then you maybe can take this extra pawn, but it's your piece is just very active. And also we are both low on time, so clear who is going to go to run out of the time of the first play. So just went for secure way. I feel amazing. It was my first experience in real chess league, and the first match I played here. I'm looking forward to play more matches. This match was really impressive. I mean, every game some fireworks, so to say. Overall match was, I think, very close, and I got luck. All decided in the last game, which was very interesting, and we ended having this threefold repetition. Altogether match was very, very exciting, and my opponent was strong, and considering the fact that we played also without increment, it spiced the things up a lot, because we were not always, but in many positions we were under pressure, and the factor of time decided sometimes the outcome. My plan for the games was to have not very simple, so complicated, and not to simplify the positions, and also to play more dynamic positions, to not to have this, because sometimes I can lose the static advantage I get in the position, so for me it's better to play dynamically, and that's, I think, what I've got, and that's why I won, I think, this match, because many positions were dynamic, and I just sometimes I had luck, and sometimes I was the one who made the right decision, right plan in that positions, and basically my plan was fulfilled in this match.